Good afternoon, everybody. It is wonderful for all of you to be here with us today. Today is August 14th, 2024. And we have a webinar entitled 5 Ways AI Can Turbocharge Your Holiday Marketing. Yes, it's blazing hot outside, but we're talking about holiday already. It's almost code freeze time, which is going to talk through some of the things you could possibly even get done before this holiday season. So thank you all for being here. If you don't know me, I am Jill Dvorak. I'm the Chief Content Officer here at CommerceNext, and it is wonderful to see you all. So with that, let me pop up my slides and just walk you through a few quick things. Today, this is the panel we're going to hear from. You see Kristi Carlson, you'll see Tierney Wilson, Andrew Tweed, Jason Seeba, and co-hosted by myself. So with that, we can't bring these webinars to you and really can't do any of this research and help without our partners. So Session AI, one of our dear friends and partners, has helped us bring this webinar today. Maeve and Robert and Alan and Scott and Veronica, who are all backstage helping, bringing you the URLs that we need, bringing you all of the, the technical piece of it. Thank you all for that. And thank you to you guys for joining us today. And whether it's live or recorded, we appreciate you being here. Coming up in just about a month, we're taking the end of August off. So hopefully you won't miss us too much. We'll be back on Wednesday, September 11th. And Alan is going to lead a webinar with some retailers and our partner Applied Digital on 3 winning conversion strategies to boost holiday revenue. So seems like kind of a no-brainer. We all want some revenue, from conversion rate and having our dollars go further. So there will be a link in the chat that you can click to essentially sign up and register for that. All right, it is never too early. 2025, save the date. This is our big summit show that happens every year. This year it's happening June 24th, next year it's happening June 24th through 26th at the New York Hilton Midtown again. And save the date. You will be able, if you click that link in the chat, you will be able to know when registration opens and get one of those first tickets. There are definitely advantages to getting the first tickets, and you will see that on the website. So otherwise, if you've ever missed any of our past events, including things from the show, keynotes, breakouts, you couldn't possibly attend every session at the show because we have so many happening at the same time. So this is a fantastic resource for you to look through, type in your keyword of what you're interested in, and now it is over 500 sessions and videos up there, including this video at some point. All right, so if you miss anything, no worries. This is a pretty easy to use platform, but up at the top, you'll see chat, Q&A, polls, and handouts. Right now, people are probably asking you where you're dialing in from. That's in the chat section. The Q&A is where you can ask our retailers and our sponsors questions that they have, or questions that you have for them. What tools are they using? What resources are they using? How long did it take to implement, etc.? Use this as kind of a focus group for you and, a peer group. So they're happy to take questions throughout this webinar and potentially even afterwards. Now, you'll see a lot of questions come through. If you see ones that really align with something you're interested in, give it the thumbs up. That's an upvote. Very much like the old school, American Idol. You can kind of upvote things. That's right there in that Q&A tab as well. And then next to the right of that, you'll see polls. Those will be popping up on your screen shortly after we have Jason do his presentation. 2 quick polls that we ask about this webinar, and then one for the next one. Those really help us gauge the conversation, the level we need to go down to, who's on the call, and what you're struggling with. So thank you for participating in advance on those. All right, and finally, the handouts. Today's handout, we have one. It will be Jason's slides that he presents. So as you are watching that, just know that you'll be able to download that. You won't have to take a picture of your screen or anything like that. Okay. And then finally, if you're watching this on replay through YouTube or any of the other platforms, there is a little icon down below. That is where you get the slides and the handouts on repeat. All right, so first up, before we get to our retail panel, what we're going to do is hear from Jason Seeba. He is the Chief Marketing Officer at Session AI, and he is a wealth of information. One of the first people, in my opinion, who has kind of brought some of these ideas to bear, but really makes them accessible and easy to understand. So I'm really happy to have Jason here with us. And Jason, thank you for joining. I appreciate it. And I'll go backstage and I'll come back on when you're all finished.
Thank you, Jill. That is very sweet. So we're here to talk about 5 ways AI can turbocharge your holiday marketing, AKA how it can make your holidays slay. So we're going to talk a little bit about the future of search. There's been a ton of changes that have hit just in the last few weeks. 2 of them being the Search GPT announcement from OpenAI, and then also the antitrust case with Google. And so I just wanted to hit on those. I do think that this is actually going to change the landscape a bit on search, especially the AI search. So the antitrust case, I think, will probably not be a big impact in the short term, especially on the search experience. But when we're thinking about acquisition for new customers, really the new AI search is going to change the game over time. It's going to essentially move from people having a whole set of, delivering a set of blue links to really recommending products for us. And we've talked about in the past kind of how product discovery and product purchase will change. And really that recommendation of products directly, and then also the proactive recommendation of products as the AI learns you and learns your preferences. And then a kind of anecdote I like to say is like, I don't ever want to think about soap again, right? So in the future, AI will just go and buy soap, the soap I want, in the place I want, in the areas I want, over time, at the price that I want. And so that's something that is actually going to change how we buy and how we discover products. So the other thing going into the holiday season is just the changes that are happening right now. So there's a ton of uncertainty, I think, in the economy, also with the election coming up, and then also what we talked about with AI's change. Also, really just the long-term changes and challenges in the global supply chain. So I think there's just a lot of uncertainty as we go into the holidays and into those expectations. So it's just something that we just need to take into account. Gen AI is definitely top of mind, and so wanted to highlight some of the kind of positives and negatives here. I think one of the areas where we're seeing customers really move is in being able to create content, right? And so I think Gen AI is still trying to find like that business use case to drive real impact. But where we're seeing it kind of hit the customer is in personalization and creation of content. This is an interesting kind of use case. PopSockets, they're actually designing. And they're the ones that do their little holders for your cell phone, where you can customize them. And so they're actually using Gen AI and Gen AI tools to create images that you can then put on your pop socket and deliver, immediately. I think that's a really obvious use case. I think you're also seeing kind of creative, creative within your brand. There's some interesting startups that are popping up around being able to create, essentially Gen AI images, but within your kind of brand. Overall brand, and definitely an area where we're seeing like a lot of growth pretty quickly. The other one though is this kind of search for authenticity. You may have heard about this, but there was a kind of ad around Gemini. So Gemini is the large language model for Google, and it's actually a very cute video, but this video talks about the hurdler and a young hurdler who wants to write a fan letter to her hero. And her dad actually recommends using Gemini to write the letter. And so there's just like a lot of backlash to this. And I think this is another area where, I think we're working out in culture where AI should kind of fit into the mix. And this is a place where people are trying to figure out how are we authentic with AI? And the real controversy here was, just have kids be able to think on their own instead of using AI to like write their first draft of their fan letter. I think it's just an interesting thing to be thinking about as we're designing our holiday campaigns. Okay, and then going into the holidays, it's all about profitable growth. I mean, I think there's been, the market was really kind of valuing growth at any cost, especially when interest rates were low. Now that interest rates are high, it's all about being profitable. And so, looking back at 2023, just wanted to bring up some of the kind of case studies or use cases. And Levi Strauss talked about how they really struggled. They were running tons of promotions, and it actually drove down their margins. And so I think as we're going into holiday, really being really considering margin when we need, everyone's using promotions as a big hammer to drive growth. And so doing that in a way that is effective is really important, and especially for driving results during the holidays. This was actually the poll question last week on the CommerceNext webinar. And so this is, if you make your holidays campaign slay in just one way, what would it be? And the one that came out on top was this idea of boosting sales while maintaining margins. And so we wanted to get into just some of the technology that can help you do that better. And that comes in, that's actually Session AI is a way to do that. And so that's our company. And so there's really this untapped idea and opportunity around anonymous users. And so there's a lot of focus on kind of CDP, CRM, personalization projects. And there's just not a lot of tools or technology focused on anonymous users. And that's really a gap that AI can help with. And so our technology actually predicts purchase intent in 5 clicks with no customer data at all. And so it helps you understand essentially who will buy, who won't buy, and who's on the fence. And so you're able to treat people differently. And so this allows you to, there's lots and lots of use cases, but one of the ones that's most relevant is actually, suppressing offers for people who don't need them, and giving and repurposing, that spend to the people who are on the fence and who would need that to convert. I wanted to walk through just a quick case study, and this is one of our retailers, it's an $11 billion retailer, and they had $105 million of incentive spend every year. And you can see here that 83 million of it was going to people who were already going to buy. And so this is just a great case study of, as you're going into the holidays, driving growth through promos really can, maybe is not the most efficient way to do it, and sometimes is actually wasted money. And so what we were able to do was reduce their promo spend 35%. So they saved $40 million in the first year directly to the bottom line. Another kind of quick case study is Tailored Brands. They own Jose Banks and Men's Warehouse. They've been a customer for a long time, and they were able to drive kind of higher conversion with this tool, also while maintaining their margins. And so I had the opportunity to talk on stage actually with Suzanne Scott just recently and kind of tell their story, what they've been able to do with this type of technology. Really what this is about is how do you deploy resources more effectively? It's actually an AI model that runs while you're on the website. And so there's just nothing like it. It's a tactic that's going to just exist in the world. Session AI is first, but this is something that's just too valuable to not exist in the market. All right, there's also, I just wanted to kind of cap this off with some social psychology research. It's actually not new, but this is the idea around just uncertainty being pleasurable. And so there's some research out there where if you were to give someone a promotion for, let's say, 30%, or you were to give them kind of a mystery promotion of, somewhere between 10 and 30%, people just love the kind of gamification of that, and their brains are more engaged to actually convert at a higher rate when there's kind of the game element. And so when you're thinking about using behavior to understand users instead of just kind of demographics, this is some of the research that supports kind of this idea of putting out there that there's a promotion out there, but not necessarily telling them exactly what that kind of site-wide promotion would be at a flat rate. All right, so the last thing is just staying on trend. So if most of us have been watching the Olympics the last couple of weeks, Snoop Dogg, I think, is now America's favorite mascot. He's amazing, and he was wearing these Skechers. So we were actually at dinner with some Skechers folks last week, and we were just talking about kind of the real-time nature of this, and they just have seen just a ton of traffic to their site just because of him being really visible during the Olympics. And I think just capitalizing on kind of the real-time nature of what's in society and what's part of the zeitgeist is really important, and Snoop's probably the best example of that. All right, last thing, as promised in the invite, was obscure Christmas music. And so this is just something personal that I do with friends and family for the last actually 10, 12 years, is I make a really, really deep cut playlist of Christmas music. And so I figured I'd share this with everyone on the call. I know it's a little early, we're in August, but you can keep it, and it can be for your holiday parties in December. So thank you so much. Appreciate you taking the time with us. Definitely walking away. This is, what we've talked about too is everyone just needs to have a story for AI this year. And so this is a link to actually my LinkedIn. So if you just want to just hit that, you can just take a picture. And if you want any of the resources, I have some book recommendations, things like that around AI. Feel free to scan that and I can send those to you. All right. Thanks so much. Appreciate it, Joe.
I love that. You can't not smile when you're talking about Christmas kitsch and, in the middle of August. So I am absolutely going to that christmaskitsch.org and figuring it out. I mean, I think the only Christmas music I've listened to on repeat are like what's on the radio. So I'm in dire need. So appreciate it. So thank you everyone for being here. What we're going to do next is jump into 2 quick polls. And this is going to really inform both Kristi, Andrew, Jason, and Tierney how we kind of tackle these questions and in what order. So we're moving in real time here. So the first question in the poll section that you're viewing, how are you using AI on your website or in stores? It could really be both this holiday season, so 2024 holiday season. Please select as many as apply, because I think there's really no wrong answer here. Let's just use as many as you are doing. And if I haven't covered one of those for H, it could be I'm using none, or it could be I'm using something else. So you can type that into the chat. So I'll read this really quickly. Again, how are you using AI on your website or in stores this holiday season? So A, are you using it for customer service? That could be both in-person customer service, store associates, or chat, offline, outsourced, etc. Are you using it for FAQs for customer service? Are you using it to create creative? I Googled that 4 times. I can't come up with something better than create creative, so I'm sorry. Are you using it to write copy for your website, either product descriptions, category pages, landing pages, etc.? Are you using AI for audience segmentation, for conversion or campaign optimization? There might be some session AI clients out there using it for that. Are you using AI for inventory forecasting, or using it for dynamic pricing, or something else completely? And I'm just going to move my computer over to look at the other screen and see what is coming in terms of the answers. Most of you are actually customer service, are using actually over a third now. Numbers keep coming in. More than a third of you are using AI for some kind of customer service function this holiday. There is about 20% of you using it for creative, 20% of you using it for audience segmentation. Let's see. Only one person, 2 people, inventory forecasting. That will be very interesting to see. And then other, I'm going to go over to the chat and just see what some other people are saying here. All right, no one's typed anything in yet. Type it in. I don't know what your other is. Are you not using it? If you're not using it, that's just as important for us to know as well. We can go ahead, Alan, and close that poll when you have a moment. And then we'll jump into the next. All right, our second question for this webinar. What sort of organizational support do your AI initiatives have? So some of the speakers here today have whole teams, right, that are using multiple FTEs to manage these. Some people on this call don't. Some have less than 1 full-time person. Some people have part-time help. Some people only have contractor help. And E would be you have no help. It's just essentially making do with your current employees, your current team and structure, and trying to figure it out from there. Okay, the overwhelming majority of you are clicking on C. It is a part-time part-time, full-time employee. So essentially you're adding this to people's existing jobs. Hopefully they're becoming more efficient. Therefore, it's not really adding to the workload, but that is 3/4 of you. About 75% have done that. There's about 20% that have no organizational support. So we're going to highlight what to do when you really don't have organizational support for these initiatives. So Alan, we can go ahead and close that poll, and we will ask one final poll question for our webinar on September 11th. So looking forward into holiday, how prepared are you right now for the 2024 holiday season? Are you very prepared? You're done? You're ready to go? If so, please put the name of your company in the chat, and we all want to work with you. B, you are somewhat prepared, putting the final touches on your holiday plans. Or C, not prepared, kind of in that planning starting mode still. All right, I'm going to look over at the poll questions. It's about 70% of you who answered are choosing B, somewhat prepared. You're putting the final touches. So Alan, hopefully that will be helpful for you when you have your webinar on September 11th. So we can end that poll. All right, so let's get to the other exciting part of the webinar. We're going to bring on all of our panel. Thank you everyone so much for being here. Firstly, let me introduce you all. Thank you very, very much for being here. I'm going to do it just in order of how I see you, Hollywood Squares. Jason Seeba, the CMO of Session AI that you just heard from. Kristi, who is the VP of Digital Technology at Kendra Scott. If you don't know Kendra Scott, it's a lifestyle, beautiful jewelry brand, both many, many stores across the country, as well as obviously online. Tierney Wilson is the Chief Marketing Officer and Chief Digital Officer of Sakara Life. They are delicious nutritional food products. I'm sure she can tell you more as well. And then Andrew Tweed, who is the General Manager of Sherry's Berries, which is part of the 1-800-Flowers large portfolio. So thank you all so much for being here today. I really appreciate your time, appreciate the technical issues getting on. So with that, I'm just going to kind of take a step back and want to orient all of the audience to where are you all with AI? Like in terms of just kind of like a t-shirt size, like small, medium, and large. Like how are you feeling about kind of where you are with AI? Jason, I'm going to skip you for this question because you are obviously on the expert side. But in terms of like what you've done so far with AI, do you mind just telling us a bit about what it is and where you're planning to go, just from kind of context? Kristi, I'd love to start with you if you don't mind. Like, what kind of AI-powered solutions are you guys using at Kendra?
Sure. We've got a few pilot programs running right now. We spent some time with a consultant agency specifically geared towards AI. We did a 12-week engagement with them. They came up with a list of use cases for us. And so we're focusing in on some of those use cases. We made an investment in an AI platform to help us with a lot of our modeling. So we're using some machine learning models to analyze historical purchase data, browsing behavior, customer demographics to try to predict what products a customer might be interested in. We're also using predictive AI to segment our customers based on behaviors and target our marketing campaigns. And we've expanded virtual try-on across our product line. So really trying to grab that customer in the moment and making sure she can try on the earrings and necklaces that she'd like to. And then finally, we've implemented some AI chatbots to support our customer care team. So we've got a lot of little things going on right now.
That is a lot. All right, Andrew, I'm going to come over to you next and tell us about what kind of things you've been using AI for. And there you go. You're off mute. Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate being here. I looked at the poll questions that you put out there, and I'd say we're BCD. So a lot of it's creative, both across video, photography, and then also writing copy, and then audience segmentation. Those are the key areas that we have focused on and will continue to. I think every time we start to feel like we have a good grasp on things, it accelerates the next week, and you're like, all right, you have to go back to the drawing board and learn more. So I'd say it's a constant work in progress, but that also keeps it pretty fun.
Yes, no, that's incredible. Yeah, creative is I haven't been an active retailer in about 8 years now, but creative was one of the hardest, most laborious, most expensive, whether it was photography or video, or it was incredibly hard. I can't imagine if you're doing it with items that go bad as well. I was just doing it with sweaters and, jewelry that really didn't have a shelf life, but it's got to be even more impactful. Tierney, along the lines of items that cannot stay on a shelf forever and ever, tell us what you're doing in the AI world right now, just to orient the audience.
Yeah, I would say similar to Kristi, we are at Sakara a stage very much of pilot. So we're leveraging AI across a few different areas. Customer service, really kind of enhancing our responses to customers, personalized recommendations. We have a few projects in the works to bring that more to the forefront to better serve our customers. I think just generally overarching marketing planning, really starting to use machine learning to better analyze our consumer behavior data. And then also help us to ideate and develop campaign strategies and messaging off of that. To Jill, your point, creative, I think, is a ongoing for everyone. It's so important, but also how do we leverage the tools that we have? So we're using AI really to help drive ideation. And then beginning, just starting to test into using it from a post-production editing standpoint, which has actually been really interesting from a time savings perspective. And then lastly, which I have really nerded out over and found to be super interesting, is we're starting to integrate build an AI tool to synthesize feedback from our customer surveys and help that inform not just our product development, but also our current merchandising strategies on our e-commerce site.
It's amazing. It was such a manual process to go through reviews over and over and try to pick out things and get some kind of trends. And now, export it, upload it, you can really get some of that, the nuggets with it. So that being said, let's talk about kind of how you have teams supporting you and or, at the org. What does that look like in terms of size? I mean, Kristi, you run quite a few groups at Kendra. Do you have dedicated employees looking at this, or is this just kind of rolled in as part of their roles now? And this is just, a new thing they take on like everyone has in their job anyway?
A little bit of both. I have a dedicated data scientist on my team. So she really does a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to the machine learning and the modeling and identifying opportunities where we can leverage AI. When it comes to some other implementations, customer service, for example, my technology director that oversees the customer service tech stack, she's kind of taken on that additional responsibility of shepherding the AI pilot through its life cycle. So I think, at least from a technology team point of view, everybody's very interested in being able to put AI on their resume. So I've got a lot of people like raising their hand wanting to help. But having one dedicated employee that's all she does is focus in on AI initiatives has been really helpful. And then we do have consulting dollars. So if I've got something big, I can go use those consulting dollars and bring in some additional resources.
That sounds really, really fair. Jason, I think I know the answer for your company, but what do you see clients doing with this right now before they work with you and then after they work with you? Is this, a whole team of people? Is this a few people? What's kind of the gamut that you're seeing with retailers and brands?
Yeah, I mean, we've had some larger customers where they have whole teams of people that are using kind of new tactics around real-time marketing. There just are a whole new set of actions you can take to be kind of reflexive to customers, and so that's for the largest companies. For kind of mid-range companies, it's the people who are already kind of in the trenches doing the work. It just gives them like another tool in their toolbox to be able to kind of trade off kind of site-wide incentives. They're doing like a lot more of let's say targeted either promotions or actions, and so it's not just promotions, but it's like kind of a broad set of actions that you can do in real time, and so that's been the focus area.
That makes a ton of sense. Andrew, in terms of the team at Sherry's Berries, what are you guys looking at in terms of an org structure there?
Yeah, not one size fits all, but I can give you our approach. Around 2 years ago, we brought together a pretty small team from within the company, so it wasn't hiring in, and they represented different disciplines, functional areas, very diverse backgrounds. But I think the common thread was that they had already shown deep curiosity across the things they worked on, and they knew how to find pragmatic solutions irrespective of their job title or scope.
Yep.
And we kind of try to create this safe space with resourcing to help test and learn. And my goal, and I think collectively the goal, is to increase the breadth and depth for anyone and across disciplines for the team, so they all become a little bit more multifaceted, almost like Swiss Army knives, where suddenly the silos break down some. And the results have been really awesome. I've seen the gap closing between what could be considered a creative or analytical person. We now have creatives that have the ability to rapidly analyze a lot of data that's really contextual what they're trying to solve. On the flip side, we have folks who might normally be considered analytical, and they're able to go in and do full Gen AI production. So that's been the direction we're heading. And right now, we're really in the phase of trying to figure out applied outcomes. So how do we take this stuff that could be theoretical and make sure that we're actually going and taking and delivering it against goals that we already have? So say in the holiday context, your goals might change, but these building blocks and the approaches are very applicable regardless of the season. So we tend to just try to evolve it that way.
That's really interesting. I mean, it seems like across the board here, people are internally raising their hands, looking to be more knowledgeable on this. So that's, anytime you can get employees kind of jazzed about whether it's a new tech or applying a tech that's out there is probably going to be the most impactful. So thank you.
I'll say, Joe, it wasn't only people raising their hand. We kind of asked them. So I think
2
years ago, a healthy level of skepticism, because for creative folks, there's a lot of questions around what is being put into these LLMs and driving some of the platforms. And on the flip side, how do we believe some of this stuff? So that also took some time to make sure everybody felt comfortable and on the same page. So raising hands are good too, don't get me wrong, but I do think really identifying the people that you already know and trying to build upon that will be great, because I think the next generation of hiring is going to be much more focused on the authentic, curious, empathetic people who can work together. And then I think your background, maybe pedigree, experience, that actually might end up not being a focal point like it might be today. So that's the direction we've been heading.
That is
I was going to say, what we've been seeing too is that it's kind of reducing that cycle time of either using an agency or using creative agencies, where people are able to just like take action like right away and iterate and come to something that's just really unique so much faster. It's really kind of impressive to see.
Efficiency. That's really, really interesting. We actually have one of our first questions have come in from the audience. So I'm going to jump to that. This is from Christina Stensvag, who, shout out to Christina. She's here almost every 2 weeks. Love that you're always on. Thank you for being a valuable member of the community. Would the panelists share some of the types of tooling they're exploring, particularly for segmentation and merchandise planning potentially? Are these tools specific to a commerce platform that you have, or a CDP, or a CRM, or an ESP? Kristi, I'll start with you and if anyone else wants to jump in afterwards, please do.
Sure. We're taking the approach of, like I said, investing in an AI platform that allows us to do the data analysis and segmentation ourselves. And then we can actually feed those segments to whatever CDP, CRM wants to consume them. The AI platform we invested in is called Data Robot. It also has a very Data Robot. One of the reasons we selected it, it has a very business user friendly interface. So I can train some of my business users to go in and do some data analysis themselves and create some of these very specific segments that they're looking for. So we're not we are going and looking for specific tooling when it comes to very specific AI services. For example, our chatbot on the website, but when it comes to the data and how we use the data to drive personalization or segmentation, we're creating those segments ourselves and actually owning that process. So
I like that. Yeah. Tierney, did you want to jump in next?
Yeah, I can jump in too. I think we're actually, we're not a huge organization, and obviously resourcing is something we're constantly, there's a give and pull on. But so we're really in a push right now of the commerce platforms and vendors that we're utilizing. How can we actually be utilizing the tools more effectively? And how are they building AI into their tools that we can be the early beta testers of and start to build our own internal knowledge set up a little bit more off the backs of some of our partners. And that's kind of an initiative that we've just started on. And so we use Segment as our CDP. And so really tapping into a lot of the AI functionality that they're starting to build around segmentation. And then kind of similar to Kristi, though, I imagine we're in a little bit more of the early stages, is we're exploring how do we build our own, off on top of our data set and LLM that we're training and we're using as we expand our product portfolio. And so I would say that's in the very early stages. But the reason that we've gotten to that route is because we thought that would be the fastest way to get to where we wanted. Might learn down the road that it isn't, but that's where we are now. And I think what I'll say, just kind of on the conversation to some of the points that Andrew was making, I think it's really important to figure out the people that are naturally interested, and then how do you harness and foster those interests even further, because that's how we'll move the fastest.
Yep. Andrew, did you want to jump in and talk about some of the tools you guys are using?
Yeah. So we try to test a lot of different tools because I think all of them have different out-of-the-box capabilities, and then they hit sort of upgrade cycles that make them a lot better. So I think more broadly, and we can get into specific tools if it's helpful. More broadly, I think the question was talking about segmentation and then maybe merch planning, and then for us, product development might be part of that. Our brand mission is connecting people through small gestures as a gifting company, and having that create meaningful memories. There's a lot within that and a whole host of data you can go through. So what we've tried to find are non-obvious gifting relationships and connections and those memories, and then work backward in thinking about our marketing campaigns. For instance, one that has come up are kind of related to weddings, but specifically friends, future in-laws, and others hitting the point at which someone gets engaged for the wedding itself or a bachelorette party. That's an area where folks were buying, but in thinking through the messaging, we hadn't tailored it too specifically to that group. And at the same time, our product portfolio didn't have much. We've been trying to go premium, higher margin products. and so developed a bride and groom strawberry that's Belgian chocolate to try to begin moving in that direction. So I'd say that the segmentation is based on those key areas where we can go a bit deeper than maybe abroad is someone gifting for birthday, and figuring out connection with folks and how that flows through. Ultimately, the tools that we use, we try to make it as seamless as possible. And as Jason mentioned, the cycle times and the ability to do this amongst the team itself, so where no one person is the only able body that can make something happen, I think is important. So that's the balancing act. But so far, it's been accessible and usable across the team.
It's amazing. Jason, I would be remiss if I didn't say, what platforms could you work with? What platforms do you work with? Is there any specific setup retailers or brands would need to have, or are you relatively agnostic?
Yeah, we're pretty agnostic. We're seeing people who are kind of early adopters leaning into this, because I think I think everyone's kind of early in this space. And so the people who are ready to experiment and try new things and build together are getting an advantage. And so I think it's more like maybe a psychographic or a psychological integration versus a technical one is really the one that makes the most sense.
All psychographics. we're leaning hard on the personality tests and the references. Excellent. All right, I'm gonna jump back to our questions, but thank you guys. Keep the questions coming from the audience. It's really helpful. And the shout outs, Tierney, you got a shout out for ideation from Stephen Burkhart. Ideation is a great use for AI. So keep those questions coming if you have any to the audience. All right. So one of the questions we talked about on prepping for this is, how are you using AI specifically to personalize campaigns for the holidays? Jason, you talked about, a client of yours, I wrote it down, just saving a mere $40 million to the bottom line when working with you. I'd love the panel to talk through, how are you using AI to kind of enhance the personalization of campaigns, whether it's through engagement, whether it's through adding more products to basket, et cetera. I think, Kristi, we had talked about this quite a bit on the call, so I'd love for you to go first here.
Sure. So, there are AI tools out there to optimize your ad spend and your ad targeting. And of course, we're actively using those. Again, going back to the segments that I was talking to before, we are really aggressively creating customer segments and marketing to those specific customers. For example, if you're a follower of the brand, we just had a partnership with Disney about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and we specifically targeted customers that were from our Disney stores and did very targeted marketing campaigns, but our machine learning models helped us identify those customers, right? And then create those campaigns to reach out to those customers, which resulted in higher conversion and higher order size. So those are probably the two main things. We're also working on a media attribution model using our AI platform. So it's a project that just launched like last week. I know there are vendors out there that provide that. We want to take a swing at building our own. And so come back to me in a few months and I'll let you know how it goes. And then finally, we are working on developing an internal virtual assistant for our seasonal employee onboarding, right? So we've got, being in retail, this is the time we're starting to onboard a lot of our store associates and our customer care associates. And so optimizing that onboarding process using some AI capabilities is another thing we're chasing after right now.
It's amazing. And keeping it more up to date, obviously, than
yes,
the training module you deploy, and no one would touch it till the next year. Right, exactly.
Right, exactly.
That's amazing. I think, Tierney, you talked a little bit about this on our prep as well. Can you walk through some of how you're going to personalize the campaigns with customer service? I think was one of your examples. Oh, you're on mute. I'm sorry. I'm just going to jump in and tell you. There you go.
Sorry about that. There was I'm in a very active office, and there was a little bit of background noise, so I didn't want everyone to have to hear that. But in terms of, we're really looking at as we kind of build out our suite of customer service tools that we're using from a technology perspective, we're really looking at how do we build in ease for the customer around the personalization element, but make it so that for our team members, we actually can train the model in our tone of voice, in our way of working. There's a lot of kind of out of the box elements, obviously, but I think we, won't settle for something that's out of the box. And so we're really looking, is there the tool that can allow us to Sakarify it in many ways and make it unique to us, but has the raw elements that we can work from. And so kind of our hypothesis is that, yes, there is. And I think, we're really focused on how do we figure out and easily test into those tools without locking in, for a 5-year strategy per se, or contract.
And being able to kind of reverse course and.
Yeah, I think the nimbleness of it, but I think at the core, like, our brand has to be paramount. And so we're putting that at the forefront.
So are you just kind of feeding in, how are you creating that? Are you feeding in your copy, your brand voice, your creative and everything? You're just essentially, you're the main input, as opposed to, the chat GPTs and the others that are obviously pulling from a wide variety. Instead, you're just influencing it very heavily by your brand. Is that how you're doing that?
Exactly. And so doing, a lot of the legwork up front, but believe that the legwork up front pays off over the long term. And then also, using it to teach us, where are we missing things? How do we continue to iterate upon it? Once we get the baseline structure in place.
I love that. All right. I'm going to jump into some of kind of the success stories and the case studies. So there's obviously quite a few. Jason, you touched on some, and I'd love to hear if you have more. Let's talk through some of the success. It could be customer satisfaction. It could be sales. Walk us through kind of how that worked. Was it an in-store experience, online experience, et cetera? I know, Kristi, you had a great example. I'd love to have you talk about that.
Sure. The success, sorry, you broke up a little bit, Jill. The success stories.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, like you had talked about the clienteling piece in store. Yeah, how did that kind of come about? How did you roll it out? And then is it still there? Are you iterating for holiday? What does that look like for this holiday?
Yeah, it's still very much in pilot mode. We've got about 30 stores that we're testing into right now. And to put that into context, we have 136 stores across the US. We are a very high touch brand. And so if you've come into one of our stores, it's very high levels of customer service, very elevated. And so we've been trying to crack the clienteling nut for a while now. And so my data scientist actually had the idea of, let's use some of these machine learning models to really understand this customer, give a targeted list to these stores, and help them generate communication to these customers using our platform, right? And so what we've been doing is that's one of my use cases in order to justify the cost of the platform. Okay. So I'm taking these pilot stores and saying, okay, every time we send out these communications, we're measuring, how effective they are in terms of conversion and order value, AOV. And eventually I'll have a big enough return on investment story to convince my CIO to continue to give me more money for this. But so yeah, it's ongoing, and we're hopeful that we can scale it across the organization probably sometime.
I love that. All right, presentation quickly. what other types of use cases are you seeing going into holiday? Maybe they're not live yet, or maybe you have one for last holiday. What other use cases have you seen?
Sure, you cut off for just a second, but
I'm sorry.
I'll jump in on use cases. So there's a bunch of use cases for obviously AI. For our platform, we're seeing people actually do some really interesting things around kind of moving from really broad site-wide promotions to drive growth to much more targeted. Part of this is being able to understand people by their behavior, not their demographics. And so the ability to limit like really large site-wide promotions. And so people are kind of trading, let's say they were going to run a 20% off promotion for 5 days, they would do it for 3 days and then only use some of that budget for only people who kind of need it based on their behavior. So they can get some of the traffic boost that they would get by announcing a site-wide, but then they would still then kind of be more targeted and more efficient. There's also some like interesting use cases that are popping up for like pre-clearance, which I think is like pretty interesting. So it's a way to, based on people's behavior, surface products. If you have seasonal products, I'm actually surfacing them at a slightly discounted price as opposed to a full clearance price. And so that's about being able to use your kind of markdown budget more efficiently. And so there's this kind of like real-time idea, understanding people's behavior. It's all about how do you deploy resources more efficiently. And so there's lots of different use cases there, but some of these, it's just really inventive what people are coming up with. And so, some of the biggest retailers are doing things around specific categories, even working with their suppliers on, specific kind of ways to influence people's behavior in real time.
I love that. So with all of this, obviously, you can't do any of this without a ton of data. And a ton of data, you need a good data infrastructure, and you need people to interpret the data and help you kind of manage the data. So let's talk about how can you ensure you even know if you have the right kind of data setup, data hygiene, data infrastructure to even support some of these initiatives. I think, Kristi, I keep starting with you. I'm sorry, but I know you have all these examples, and I'm a customer, and I see this incredible marketing. I think I get targeted for everything because I'm a sucker. But I think the Disney one I did not get, so I will say that actually worked because my husband's a Disney guy, not me. So.
Let me make a note of that. Hold on.
Yeah, exactly. Send me that promo code. Thank you. Walk me through what did you do kind of starting, and how are you keeping the data up to date and healthy, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, I would just, for folks that are wondering how do we get the data to where we need it to be to enable effective AI, as someone who I'm responsible for our data warehouse and analytics functions here, and we are still ensuring that we have the right foundations. And I think it's an ongoing process that you have to continually focus on data improvement and cleansing and optimization. But I'd say, one, ensure you have an infrastructure that can handle large volumes of data efficiently. Think about the analytics tools that you're going to invest in. Focus on improving the quality of your data through cleaning, validation, standardization. Implement data and AI governance and security practices. This is one that everybody kind of like, oh, yeah, we'll get to that. But it's coming fast at us, all of the governance, especially around AI that's coming out of the UK. It's going to affect us quicker than we think. So you really need to be thinking about that. And then, consider investing in external data to augment what you have. I'm constantly looking for more first-party data and how we get the customer to give us more data, because then we can actually serve the customer better. So tool selection is very important. So if you have access to one of the big research firms, ask them to help you with that tool selection. Your CDP is vital here. And you want to make sure it can consume all of your customer data points and then orchestrate those across any other systems that need to consume that information. So
that's Very, very well said. Does anyone else have anything to add in terms of data governance?
So exciting.
That's a whole other webinar with some lawyers on that I will not be present. No, it is. I mean, look, and then Google cookies, no cookies, first party data, and then all the states, all the countries. It's obviously beyond complex. So, Tierney, did you want to add something to that?
No, I think to Kristi's point, like, I think the more, marketing, I come at it from a slightly different side, but the more your marketing and your tech, IT, et cetera, can be hand in hand and really on the same page, I think is so key too. Because to Kristi's point, like, the data in is the data out. And you can spend all your time cleaning the data and still not make progress. And so I think the more everyone holds hands and agrees, we're really going to make sure that we're putting the highest quality, best data in, and we're going to put systems and processes in place across the organization to make sure that's happening is key. You get to, move a lot faster.
I love that. Jason, a question for you on that is do you see retailers struggling with it? Are you guys advising in that capacity, or is that something that's best left to people who bill by the hour and have JDs?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think on the data side, only collecting what you really need is really key. I think you're seeing definitely trends in the market where people are demanding more privacy. There's, Google, Meta, Apple are all kind of fighting over, doing this kind of like privacy war. I don't think it's really about people's privacy. I think it's more about their power. But realistically, like regulations are moving in a different way. And then really, even with iOS and things like that, people are opting out of data. And so I think as retailers too, it's only capturing the data that you really need and then finding what's really actionable there, as opposed to there was really a trend of like capture everything in your data warehouse at one point, and now I think there's a trend of people seeing that as maybe a liability, and just capturing what makes the most sense and you could action on.
And that data changes, right? Because you collected it 2-3 years ago, it might not be remotely relevant anymore. Who else has been embarrassed by pulling up an Amazon on a shared screen and being like, oh, I'm so sorry, I also searched for that last year. It's a baby gift for somebody else, like that data is out of date the second you're done with that search a lot of the times. And, really knowing, I mean, it's on the retailers and the brands to express why the data is important to them, right? What's going to happen with it? What's the difference of what I could get recommended? What's the difference of, sorting by my size versus not sorting by my size and saving that, et cetera. So, well, we are just about at time, and we did have a few more questions come in. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of them, but firstly, really, really want to thank Kristi, Tierney, and Andrew for joining, being able to share some of this. I know it's a crucial, busy time before holiday. But all of the people joining and watching this and record are grateful to you, as are we at CommerceNext. And Jason, thank you for explaining all of these things to us in a way that, is absorbable and really, really impactful. So thank you to everyone. If you want to download any of Jason's slides, grab those in the handouts. But otherwise, thank you so much. We appreciate all of you, and happy early holidays. Thank you all.